My brother got accused of leaking the England team. The only way Matt Tissier will ever be your player is if you buy Southampton Football Club. And he starts digging me out in training for not running back. And I just looked at him and I went, Carlton, you haven't been here very long, have you? I said, what happens here is the players that can play, they play, and your job is to go and fetch the ball and give it to me. I used to go in there before the game on a Saturday and back myself to score the first goal. He was in charge for 66 games. I missed one through injury, one through suspension, and in those 64 games I scored 45 goals. I'm watching him in training and I'm thinking, has he won a competition to come and train with us or something? Like, he was crap, honestly. Growing up, this bloke was my hero. And there I am on the training ground telling him to fuck off. My happiness is what I put above money and trophies, basically. And that's why I stayed where I did.
Gentlemen, are we fresh? Fresh from Wembley at the weekend?
I think I'm fresher than you two.
Yeah.
But I only did Sunday, didn't I? You did the Saturday, Sunday.
Adopted Macam.
Friday, Saturday.
Friday, Saturday even, yeah.
I enjoyed it. The Trafalgar Square and everything beforehand.
So we went down Friday, didn't we?
Yeah. And they certainly know how to enjoy himself.
Tell you what, you're not far off getting keys to the city, you, up there. I'm telling you. Hey, I didn't know if I was Baldy from Undr The Cosh or Tom Cruise. Baldy! Baldy!
Where's Baldy? Well, you just got the curly finger from me, and you could say
the curly finger.
Honestly, you must have been like a peacock when you got home.
I was straight to bed when I got home, I'll tell you that much. I didn't race for a good few hours.
A shot peacock, but...
Yeah, there were feathers scattered. But no, it was a bloody good day.
Got a new song anyway. Barred from a library.
If anyone not seen the video's on YouTube now, obviously we covered, we did a vlog for the whole day, but I did feel like a bit of a twat. Like
it was probably one of the biggest arseholish things ever done by us.
But there is a library at Wembley, and when these opportunities arise.
To be fair, I were actually in there. I never seen it, and to see the video because I was still talking to security. He was still He was still wondering why I wanted to get into a library with a Cornish pasty in my hand.
But he tried stopping us getting in, and I said, "I'm bringing my books back, mate." And he went, "Oh, go on." He said, "Bringing your books back from Sunderland, are you?"
We had two Sunderland shirts on. Oh, go on.
I think it's all fault then.
Muttered to himself, bloody disgraceful. As we walked past.
Security guard's own fault, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
We had fun, didn't we? No, it were a bloody good day. Days.
And Sunderland got promoted.
It was deafening after your
in the
song.
Library. I know.
And Sunderland got one.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Sunderland
great
won.
Result won it, man.
Good.
Yeah.
Wickham did well. I mean, the Wickham fans were brilliant as well.
Yeah, they were.
Tried to a few, and good old day. Hey, season finished yesterday. We're dramatic, wasn't it?
Oh, not half.
I didn't know what game to watch.
Yeah, I was flicking.
I didn't watch any, to be honest.
Well, Rose's Liverpool fan. She had her head in her hands, and like gutted. I said, "But you've got League Cup, FA Cup, you've got Champions League final next week. Try 10th in League One."
It's one of them.
Try bottom of Championship, Rose.
They were 14 points off it, weren't they, at Christmas or something? But the way the day went, where it was so close, it felt like they'd have fucked it. But
thing is, it was like I was seeing this. I didn't watch any of it, but I seen the scores. And it were like sod's law when as soon as City went 3-2 up, Liverpool were going to score. Yeah. And it were literally within 2 minutes or something, wasn't it?
I tell you, and I don't want him to, but he's starting to annoy us. Jesse.
Lingard?
No, March.
Oh. Is he? Why?
Have you seen his speech in the changing room after?
Yeah, well, Mike were telling me about it on the way down. I've not seen it.
Bit. He's just starting to do me tits in a bit.
Well, get him out, Bielsa back in.
Yeah. What are your thoughts, Matty? Yeah, are you with us?
I think.
Take a seat.
I think he's going to be like Graham Wesley, showing videos and that.
Yeah.
He showed a Gandhi video, and he showed a video of them scoring last-minute goals. I think he's going to show the geese next in a formation.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thanks, mate.
Great contribution, Matty.
4
years in.
He somehow makes a big thing about not making it about himself, but making it about himself in the process by saying, "I don't want to hear them singing my name out there."
Sing my name.
Yeah. And I saw loads of people like, we weren't going to sing your name.
We've seen through you, Jesse.
But
He could be like Coach Carter on.
Yeah.
And I quite like that. I like that.
He kept them up, didn't he?
Yeah,
He's done his job.
Skin of the I suppose he has, yeah.
And I want to like him as well. That's the worst thing.
Why?
I'm trying. I don't know.
Did
looks
you
like a nice
see
bloke,
the colour drain from Mo Salah's face when he thought he'd scored the winner to give Liverpool the title, and then he went over to the crowd, and obviously the message was relayed from the crowd that City are winning 3-2.
I tell you what, I have seen somehow the Wolves fans made it out as it were 3-3,
Yeah.
and everyone starts cheering and that.
Oh, was it the Wolves fans?
Yeah.
But it was some. I'd like to think it wasn't a Liverpool fan.
Oh yeah.
That is a sick joke.
Well, an Evertonian in crowd and thought, fuck it, I'll start it off.
Because there was one bloke, one day when Salah was celebrating with all the players, there was one bloke just going, shaking his head, waving them back the halfway line, like.
To be fair, man, when it went 2-0 Villa, you're like, whoa.
Here we go.
Oh dear.
15 minutes left.
And we're in Liverpool today. I bet they'd still be cleaning up if they'd have won it.
Yeah.
You know? But we've got a message from Splitch, by the way. They're sponsoring this week's episode.
This is good gear, this, man.
Yeah,
It
very
is.
good.
So it's
Wanna get
basically it's like because I do fantasy football me at the start of every season, and then by week 4 I've
Lose
lost
interest.
interest.
Yeah.
But with Splitch, you pick your team. It's a weekly game, so you pick your team each week. Whether that's the Premier League games, you can do the German league, you can do whichever, and you can put your money on. So you're betting on your fantasy football team for that week. So you're getting all the points again. There's your bonus points for your captain and everything, and whoever gets the most points takes the money. So you can put £1.50 in, and then you can win a few quid.
That's good. Because I'm same as you. Like, soon as like week 2, week 3, I forgot to put a couple of. I've got 4 injured on who are playing.
Yeah.
And you're like, fair enough
can't be
now.
arsed.
Yeah. But if there's money involved,
Let's
Oh,
try
you'll
it
be
in
interested.
entity.
But it's weekly, innit? So you can change. You
Yeah.
can pick a different team every
oh
week.
yeah, you're not picking a team for the season. It's each week you pick a new
Right.
team
So
for,
it's always
for that
fresh.
week. Yeah.
So that's more interesting because you can actually study the games, can't you? Who's going to be playing against
Yeah.
who?
Yeah. So it's available at the minute in the UK, Germany, Austria, and Brazil for all our Brazilian listeners. You can get involved.
Speaking of Brazilians, I've had one this morning. You're on melody.
That is, I just woke up when you sent us that picture.
I sent him a picture of me,
Old man.
my old man covered in beat.
Lovely.
I'm not putting it in the group, but if you want me to, I can.
But yeah, you can battle it out with your mates as well. You can get private groups going, but you can compete for the money as well. There's up to 70 grand to be won each week, by the way. It's not just we're not just talking pocket change. It's life change.
Good one to
And
win,
That's what
innit?
we're all about. That's what we're all about. And it's obviously it's 18 plus because there's gamble involved. BeGambleAware.org, and you can download it for free now and have a little play ready for the start of next season. The link's in the description. Get yourself involved. Again, you've got to be 18 or over. BeGambleAware.org.
Well, that's my holiday reading suds anyway.
Bit of studying.
The Brazilian Premier League, whatever it's called.
Yeah, oh yeah, get yourself warmed up with the.
I'll be
South
warm,
American
don't you worry about that.
Matt Tissier this week.
Yeah. Lovely guy.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
really.
I like everything that's going off with all that. Put it to one side.
Yeah,
It's
because we do talk about it a little bit at the end as well, don't we?
Yeah.
And I think it's a bit of a sad and a bit just how he's been cast aside. You know, there are his views, whatever his views are, whether you agree with him or not. He's not hurting anybody.
Yeah. He's not an
In my
alien, is he?
opinion.
Let's be honest, he's not an alien.
lovely fella.
We
Invited
never met him before.
us into his house.
Yeah, I don't think people should be ostracised for the views if they're not hurting anybody.
Yeah.
Personally, but yeah, some great stories.
Yeah.
Cockerel as well. That's the first time we've had a cockerel.
Yeah, we've had parrots.
We've had parrots, we've had dogs.
Cockerel.
Our first cockerel. Been a few cocks at the table, but
Yourself included, but
if you're not involved with the Patreon as well, we've got a lot of bonus content coming. A lot of you like that
End of
one,
the
didn't you?
season.
So that
Holiday
link's in
listening.
the description as
Oh,
well.
I
Get
tell you
yourself
what,
involved.
there might be a few sign up, for the holidays.
Yeah.
Imagine like you've got missus and kids, and you're like, oh, Dad, come and get in pool, and can you throw this ball? And
Yeah.
no,
I'm on Crossley too.
I'm on Carlton Palmer here, love. We'll play with somebody else's dad.
Oh, shall we get him in then?
Yeah.
Is that right that you've never drunk a pint of lager? Well, I never.
Is it the taste or
Smell and taste. I'll ask me that after.
I wish I'd never. I'll be honest with you, I wish I'd never.
Oh, was that the first question? Have we started it?
I like the taste of it though.
Yeah, I do.
Peer pressure.
Not as harsh as vodka or gin.
I think that's the reason I've got this gut though. I think that's the problem.
How do I get mine?
It's been Coke.
Coke,
Full fat Coke.
Full fat Coke for sure.
What's your tipple then?
Malibu and Coke. I wasn't joking before when I said that.
Malibu and Coke. What, just all night? That's all you drink all night?
Don't ask. I just, from an early age, I'd never really liked the taste of alcohol. So like the smell of beer and wine, I just found it smells horrible. I ain't trying that. And then my brother said, if you don't like that, try this. I've always drank Coke since I was little. And it was just put some of this rum in it. I went, that's nice. I can drink that. It tastes like pop. So I started drinking Malibu and Coke when I was about 18 and I've never stopped.
That must have been one of your on your team nights out. Can I get 15 pints of lager and a Malibu and Coke, please?
Absolutely. I tell you what, you've got to be very mentally strong to be able to do that in a football change room, as you know.
Were you never one of the big drinkers in the dressing room?
I barely drank at all until I was about 28, till I got divorced, funny enough. As I started drinking. But for the first 10 years of my career, I probably drank a couple of times a year. That was it. Yeah.
Did you still go out with the lads though? Just
not loads. I did Christmas parties and all that kind of stuff, and occasionally, not very much. Yeah, I wasn't much of a. I was married at 21. I had my first kid at 23, so I didn't really go out very much. And then when I got divorced, I started going out a little bit more then.
Man about town.
For a few years, at the back end of my career, I was, yeah. Probably coincided with a lot of the injuries that I had. I wasn't looking after my body particularly well at that stage. I never did that as a kid. Even from like 17, 18, I barely went out. So it was just playing football, and then towards the back end of my career, kind of like, I'm injured this weekend. I might just go out instead.
Got to get out of your system at some point, don't you?
You do. So the last few years of my career was a bit more out and about.
We had Bez on, and he said when he signed down there, he got a bad injury, and he did. For 8 months. He was living with David Hurst, and he just enjoyed himself, probably for the first time in his career.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I remember that. I used to go out with him quite a bit. That coincided at the time with back end of my career. I like Bez. I got on well with Bez. Yeah, he drank Malibu and Coke as well,
Did he? He kept that quiet.
Check this out. So what about this? You'll love this. One of my other things in life, I like country music, right? And Shania Twain was one of my favourites. So I'd been to watch her in concert a couple of times, and then she was doing a concert in Sheffield. So I was like, I fancy going to watch that. So I was single at the time, but I bought 2 tickets. I thought someone will come with me. So it gets closer to the day of the concert, and everyone's like, "Go with you to watch that." What are you talking about? So I rang Bez, knowing that he was already up there. Bez, I said, "We fancy going to the concert." I said, "In Sheffield." I said, "I'm coming up." He went, yeah, no problem. Who is it? So I went, "Shania Twain." "Oh, okay, yeah, I'll come. So anyway, I rock up there like quite early on the day, and we go to a pub just around the corner from where the concert was happening. So the barman goes, or the lady behind the bar, she went, hello, gentlemen. She said, "How can I help you? What are you doing here?" So I said, "Well, actually, we're going to watch Shania Twain in concert." She went, "What can I get you to drink?" I went, 2 Malibu and Coke, please." She must have thought, aye.
I'm sure I recognise these 2 guys. I'm
Sure, I've just seen Matt Tissier and John Beresford in a couple of Stetsons drinking Malibu and Coke. Shania Twain.
With the leather jacket with the tassels coming on.
I'm surprised Bez never mentioned that. When you spoke to him.
There's a few things he's missed out. Is that right that Xavi, you were Xavi's idol?
Yeah, apparently
Growing
so.
up.
Yeah. That was back in 2010, just before the World Cup 2010. He came out and did an interview and mentioned that in his interview. I was like, that's not bad. Not bad little recommendation from a former player or from a fellow player. So yeah, that was pretty cool.
Should have got a T-shirt made.
I know, yeah, I should do.
What, Xavi on the front and Shania on the back?
Xavi loves me, I love Shania. Yeah, it was a nice quote he put. He said something like, he was unbelievable. He used to dribble around 7 or 8 players with no speed. I was like, yeah, I think there's a compliment in there somewhere.
Just take it for what it was.
Yeah, that was pretty nice of him to say that.
I'd be dining out on that for the rest of my life, I think.
Yeah. Not would I.
Funny enough, actually, when it came out, I was actually in Spain. I remember it where we were. We were in La Manga at the Footballers Golf Classic, and we were on the coach going to the hotel in La Manga. There was about 30 of us ex-players, ex-managers, and one of them on there was my ex-manager Chris Nichol. He was on the golf trip, and he was sat on the coach. And Chris has given me my debut at 17, but for the next 2 or 3 years, he never really played me loads. He just played me a couple of games and dropped me. I'll be sub for 10 games in a row, and so when this article came out, it was in one of the English newspapers that we had on the bus. And somebody went, "Oh, Tiz, have you seen what Xavi said about you?" Show me this. I was like, brilliant. So I took the newspaper article and I walked down the front of the bus where Chris Nichol was sat. I just put it in front of him and I went, "Now he knows what a fucking player is. He wouldn't have left me on the bench for 3 years."
Do you think he was just doing that just to sort of bed you in, though? Or
I do. I understand why he was doing it. It's frustrating, obviously, because you want to play every game. But I was a kid, and I wasn't really ready for that kind of football every week. Because I don't know if you've seen pictures of me as an 18-year-old. I was like that, and physically, I couldn't really look after myself very much. So I used to have to rely on Jimmy Case to look after me. If somebody would start kicking the shit out of me, I'd just go, "Jim, I can have a word with you."
and it was a word.
and yeah, he was very good. He was like our minder in the team, Jim. He was as a young kid to have somebody of his experience in the team looking out for you. It was pretty cool.
Was it just time then that your development, or did you hit the gym? Did they get you on a strength thing, or when you said you weren't physically?
It was just time really. I was so skinny. I just wasn't strong, and I also I probably wasn't the fittest player in the world. So in terms of my physical fitness in pre-season and stuff, I was shit. All the long distance running, all that stuff.
And was it on your case as well?
Very good. So.
Not interested in...
Hated it.
Yeah.
Absolutely hated it. And I don't know, it was just a mentality thing. If you put football in front of me, I train all day. And I'll run all day as long as I've got a ball there. But you take the ball away and something in my head just goes, "Nah, not interested."
You relate to that, John?
Very much so. I think it's actually a physical thing. If I were all right for 60 yards. Over that, my thighs just started burning, whatever pace I were going at.
Thing is, the back end of our career as well, I mean, it took them so long, but they used to bring a ball into pre-season. You'd run constantly, but you were dribbling a ball. So you're doing the same thing, just with a ball. And the lads seem to enjoy it more.
Yeah, it is. It's just it's a mentality thing. It's in our day, I mean, the pre-seasons were brutal. In the mid-'80s, late 80s. They actually sent us a few times. They just took us to an army training camp, and for 2 weeks, the coaches at Southampton did nothing. They literally went to the PTIs at the army camp, get them fit, and let the PTIs just do what they wanted with it. I remember once we have these 400-metre races in teams of 4 or 5 of us, but on our shoulder, a big fuck-off tree trunk. like this. And we've got these tree trunks between the 5 of us having 400-metre races with a fucking tree trunk. how's that relevant to what we're trying to do here?
Coming down on a Saturday, that won't it?
I'd have been like that, yeah. Oh, we're playing with fucking jeans on Saturday.
That's exactly what I was like. It was just some of the stuff you look back and you go, what were they thinking?
You think it was a mentality thing back then, though? We'll toughen them up.
It was definitely a toughening up thing. It was a mental toughness that they were instilling in you, probably more than the physical side. But yeah, I didn't enjoy that. Didn't enjoy that at all.
Were they always on your case to get fitter and stuff as well?
Yeah, they were. Some more than others. I'd say once I got to about 21, 22, and I was in a bit better shape and a bit more able to look after myself. My fitness levels were pretty good then, and I think I got labelled early on as struggling for fitness. That's why Chris Nicol wouldn't play me for 90 minutes, so I wasn't fit enough. So that got labelled early on. But from the age of like 21 to the age of 27, 28, I could play every week. I could play Saturday, Wednesday, easy. But because I got labelled early on in my career, kind of just stuck with me. And yeah, there's not a lot you can do about it.
Where did the first come from? Where did it first come from? Was it the press?
Well, it probably came from Chris Nicol, first of all. He
gave it to the press.
In a completely innocent way, because I don't think Chris was malicious in any way, shape or form. But he would have been asked, why are you not playing Matt Tissier? Why is he always sub? And he would have just gone, well, he's not quite fit enough. And fit probably wasn't the right word he should have used. He probably should have used he's not quite developed enough physically to cope with that every week. But he didn't. He kind of went and said he's not fit enough. And so that kind of stuck with me throughout my career, and it was kind of one of the things that was thrown against me as to why I didn't play more for England, was because everyone just assumed that I wasn't very fit. But between those ages, I was as fit as all the other players. I just couldn't do everything. I could do everything that they were doing in pre-season. I might have just done it a little bit slower, because I was never like really quick. I had a bit of pace early on, but I think as I got older and I got stronger, I obviously lost a little bit of pace. And so that was kind of always an accusation that was thrown at me, that you're not fit and you're fat and slow and whatever.
Yeah, I got that thrown at me, but it probably were warranted.
Well, I mean, both these, you look at your games records, you didn't miss many games either. So it wasn't that you were unfit and it was costing you.
I mean,
you both played.
The first 10 years of my career, I probably missed a handful of games. I mean, the last 3 years, probably I missed quite a lot of games. But yeah, through my peak years, I didn't miss many games.
So if I'm a manager, I'm not bothered if you run 20k or 5k. If you score 2 goals a game,
exactly,
I'm more than happy for that.
Exactly.
Let the fucking Springer Spaniels run about who can't play.
Exactly.
Water carriers.
Maybe a bit harsh, I think, the water carriers, but let the runners run and the players play.
Were you criticised for the nutritional side as well, looking after yourself in that sense?
Yeah, I wasn't very good with that. I'll hold my hand up. My diet was absolutely shocking. I did rely on my natural ability to get me through a lot of the time. I wasn't really aware. I say aware. Basically, we used to get weighed on a Monday and a Friday every week, and as long as your weight was somewhere around where it should be, nobody minded. But back in those days, nobody really cared about your body mass index.
Yeah.
They didn't care how your 13 stone was made up. It's just whether you were 13 stone or not. You could have a 96% body mass index, but if you weighed 13 stone, they didn't give a shit. And, things have changed a little bit now. So I used to do things like, we used to play on a Saturday. Right, and so after a game on a Saturday, I'm fucking starving. Right? I'm spent after a game on a Saturday. So Saturday night, I'm just like, woof, everything. Fish and chips, the lot. All wrong shit. But to counter that on a Sunday night, obviously I knew I'm getting weighed Monday morning. On a Sunday night, I go and play tennis with my neighbour for an hour and a half. And then after tennis, I sit in the sauna for 20 minutes. Getting up Monday morning, jobs are good.
It doesn't matter that your ankle is shattered.
Couldn't run around in training on a Monday because I'm spent.
They must have been good fish and chips then.
They were good fish and chips. I found some good fish and chip shops around this city. So yeah, the nutrition, that was one of my weaknesses. I didn't eat like an athlete should eat, but I never considered myself an athlete. And I think that was the biggest problem. I always considered myself a footballer, not an athlete. And because I knew I had enough ability to be able to get by, I just ate what I wanted, basically.
Do you think if you'd have not been as talented, you would have gone down that way? Or do you think you might have had to think, I tell you what, I need to
that would have
sort my
changed.
shit out?
Yeah, that would have. I would have done, because I wanted to be a footballer so badly, I would have done whatever it took to be a footballer. And so if I didn't have the ability and it needed something different to be a footballer, then I would have done that. And that's why people ask me today, well, would you survive in today's game? Would a player like you survive in today's game? Would you be able to play like you used to be able to play? And I'd say, well, the demands are different in today's game. So I would have had to have done things differently to have been a footballer. But I can assure you, I would have done it.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to be a footballer that badly. I would have done whatever it needed to be a footballer. But because I had a lot of natural ability, I didn't have to do too much of the other stuff to play in the First Division and Premier League.
Speak about a lot about lads who like they have their own set thing. I was talking about Stevie Howard, and managers have tried to change them and do this and do that, but it's affected the game. They're not the same, same player. They just get comfortable, doing what they do, eat what they want, and it shows on the pitch.
And and there's a lot to be said for that. I think there's a balance to be had. I think if you're actually trying to improve somebody by making them do stuff that they hate, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. I think if you're happy in your life outside of football as well, and you're content and you're doing the stuff that you feel makes you comfortable, because everyone's different. And that's one of the things that I really objected to in the late 90s, about 96, 97. Up until that point, the first 10 or 11 years of my career, when you got to the game on a Saturday, you warmed up how you wanted to. You prepared for the game in a way that you felt was best for you. And in the mid to late 90s, they brought in a fitness guy at the club, and then all of a sudden he wanted to take the warm-ups before games, and that meant everybody warm up together doing exactly the same warm-up, and I was the only one who kind of went, I don't want to do that. That's not how I prepare for a game. I've prepared for a game for the last 11 years, scored nearly 200 goals preparing that way. I said, now you're telling me I've got to warm up with everyone else. That's not what makes me feel good. And he was doing this warm up, and honestly, at the end of it, I was fucked. I was like, I'm not ready to play a game now. I just need to be sat in the change room, nice and calm, a few stretches, walk out. I'll have a few shots from the edge of the box, and that do me, and then I'm ready to go. The long warm ups were a waste of energy that I could have needed in that last 10 minutes of the game. So I rebelled against the team warm-up, and I used to fuck off.
Did you used to stay in the changing room and just go out when you wanted and just keep the same thing?
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Tell you what, by the way, it's a good job you didn't like lager and beer, because you'd have been to play tennis for fucking 5 hours on a Sunday, wouldn't you? You had 12 pints and then fucking fish and chips.
You speak like you know from experience there.
Very much so. Very much so.
How was it playing under Brandfoot?
That was probably the least enjoyable couple of years of my career. I've got nothing against Ian, decent bloke, but we just completely disagreed on how we thought football should be played. It was very much a route one, stick the ball in the channels, we'll get some corners and throw-ins, and we'll win a game on set pieces. And I didn't like that at all. So we used to have these kind of battles really where he didn't really want me in the team because I didn't work hard enough for him. But the fans wanted me in the team. So so it was always like a tug of war. And he wanted to not pick me, but he knew if he didn't pick me, he was going to get slaughtered. And one of the times where he did drop me, I think he dropped me for 5 games. In those 5 games, we went out of the League Cup over 2 legs against Shrewsbury. And I think we drew 1 and lost the other 2. And so after 5 games, he was almost forced to bring me back into the team.
He was sat on the bench like that?
No, it wasn't even sat on the bench. No,
So
not on the bench. No, so he wouldn't put me as sub. That's the thing. He wouldn't put me as sub because he knew that the fans in the stadium from minute 1 would have been going,
Get him on.
Yeah. And start singing my name. So he wouldn't even put me as sub. So he dropped me completely out the squad for 5 games. Not even.
So you sat in the stand, a bit smug.
So I was sat in the stand, and then he brought me back. We played against Newcastle, and it was live on Sky in 93-94 season, and that was the game where I scored those 2. The flick over a couple of defenders and rolled it in the corner, and then the flick off the thigh and volleyed it in the top corner. We won 2-1. And that was the game. And in that game, after about an hour, I hadn't seen much of the ball. And the guy who had been playing in my place was warming up, right? And I didn't see him at this stage. I only saw it when I looked it back on the telly. So the guy, Paul Moody was the guy's name. He'd been playing in my place. And when I score the goal, the camera pans to Ian Bramford on the bench. And he hasn't even got a smile on his face, right? And all you see is him looking at Paul Moody, who's just been warming up, ready to come on, and he just goes, "Sit down, Moods." And that was it. Sit down. Now, I don't know if he was bringing me off at that point, but there's a very good chance it was going to be me. So that moment was a massive, pivotal moment in my career, because I'd kind of had 2 years of Bramford not really fancying me in the team. We weren't a very good team. We were struggling a bit. And then all of a sudden I scored those 2 goals and everything flips. Everything flips. We go to Aston Villa the following week. I scored 2. We win 2-1 there as well. We go to Anfield. We lose 4-2, but I scored 2 crackers at Anfield. And then about 4 or 5 weeks after that, I mean, he's under pressure for his job now. The fans are protesting at every home game. They hate him and they want him out. And in the beginning of December, that Newcastle game is the end of October, beginning of December, he does the thing he thinks will give him a bit longer in his job to try and save his job, and he makes me the captain.
Oh.
Yeah. How about that? In the space of
That's
6
a
weeks,
quick
I've gone
change
from not
around.
even being in the 14 to being captain of the team, walking the team out at Everton.
And how's your relationship? Like during that 5 games, are you a headstrong young guy? Are you knocking on his door?
No, I wasn't that kind of bloke.
No.
No, I didn't feel I needed to, because I knew
God, you've
the
got
pressure
these
that he
fans
was under,
telling him.
and I've got pretty much the whole of the stadium wanting
Yeah.
me to be in the team. So I didn't need to go and cause trouble, and it's not in my nature. So I didn't really, and I have always had respect for my managers, apart from one who I called a bit of a twat, told him to fuck off. We'll talk about that later, which was interesting actually, because growing up, this bloke was my hero, and there I am on the training ground telling him to fuck off. I was like, this is such a weird life I'm leading here. What's going on?
Never meet your heroes, but never tell them to fuck off either.
But is the relationship strained a little bit from that 5 games? You know, when he's handing you that captain's armband, is
Do you
the
know
egg
what?
on his face?
Weirdly, it wasn't strange. It wasn't, because I wasn't one to kick up a fuss. We never fell out. So we did, and he'd always. I mean, he didn't probably speak to me very much during that time when I was out of the team. He'd just basically ignore you. But when I got back in the team and I started scoring all the goals, and then he makes me captain, I must admit I did feel a smugness.
And I snatched it off him. Fucking gives it. It's about time.
I'd have it on in the chippy on Saturday after the game.
So that was at the beginning of December, and beginning of January, he lost his job. and we got a new manager, and Alan Ball came in, and
Off we go.
the rest of my career is kind of completely flipped from that moment, because Alan Ball came in and it was just all of a sudden I had a manager there who actually thought I was a good player and wanted to build the team around me, and did basically put 10 players in a shape in a team, and put me in the middle and just went, don't want you to do, this is what he told me. He said, right, so he put all the players in the team. We played 3 at the back, we had 4 in midfield, we had 2 up front. And then he got me and he went, right, that gap between the forwards and the midfield, he said, go and stand in there. He said, I'm going to tell every one of them lot around you, the first thing they do when they get the ball is they look to pass to you. Now, bear in mind, we're bottom of the league at this point and we're shit, right? We're in serious trouble. And he said to the other lads, he went, look, this is your best player. He said, this is your best chance of getting out of relegation. Whenever you get the ball, first thing I want to do is try and pass to him. He said, and you, he said, all I want from you, he said, I know you're shit at defending. He said, so I don't want you doing that. He said, but all I need from you is when we are defending, you put yourself in a position where when we do win the ball back, you can receive it. He said, that's all I ask of you. And that's what he did. And in the next 18 months, he was in charge for 66 games. I missed 1 through injury, 1 through suspension. And in those 64 games, I scored 45 goals.
That's phenomenal.
And set up a few more as well. And we stayed up that season on the last day of the season. We drew 3-3 at West Ham on the last day of the season. I scored a free kick, a penalty, and I set up the other goal.
As nice as that is, did you feel the pressure?
No. That was the weird thing. Because when we got given the penalty, I think we were losing 2-1 when I got the penalty. And it was really odd because given the situation that we were in, this is a high pressure penalty. But I just felt incredibly calm. And I think because I had a lot of belief in my ability and I knew I was quite good at penalties, and I didn't really feel nervous or anything. It probably helped as well that the Saints fans that day were behind the goal that I was kicking towards.
Yeah.
And I didn't really feel that pressure. But it felt after that game was amazing, because we were, for so long that season, we looked like we were getting relegated. I mean, we had a shocker. Even over Easter, we had 2 really bad home results against Man City on Easter Saturday and I think Oldham on the Monday, or it might be the other way around. 2 home games against 2 teams who were fighting relegation like we were, and we lost both of them, which was just like, we just thought we win those 2 games, we're home and hosed. We lost them both. We were in deep shit. So we ended up going to Norwich, and we won a game, which I think has only happened once since, where we went behind in the game 3 times and we came back and won 5-4. And I think it's only ever happened one other time in Premier League history. And that result was the one kind of that give us the momentum to stay up. And we did the 3-3 draw at West Ham on the last day.
45 goals in 64
games.
You've 150 million quid, aren't you?
Mm.
Now,
in that kind of form,
you're a 150 million pound player.
Yeah,
now,
I mean those 2 years, that season and the season after with Borley. So I'd already scored a few under Bramford, but I ended up with 25 league goals that season in 93, 94, and then the following season I ended up scoring 30. I had 20 league goals and 10 in the cup the following season. I wasn't even playing as a centre forward, and I still couldn't get it. I still couldn't get in the England team. In fact, I couldn't get the England squad. At the end of that 94-95 season, Terry Venables had dropped me from the squad, and I got 30 goals that season.
Must have been pulling your hair out with that, then. Eh?
That was frustrating, yeah. But it was a definite bias towards players who weren't playing at one of the big clubs. Because if I'd have been scoring that volume of goals playing for Man United or playing for Liverpool or whatever, I would 100% been in the England squad.
Yeah.
You know, to put it in perspective, I mean, there's no disrespect to Tom Cleverley, but he got 5 more caps than you. You know, and a good Premier League player, but you see, you look at that goal record.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. I'm still very proud of the 8 England caps I got. It was what I wanted to do since I was a kid, was to play for England. It was just, so to do it even once was amazing. It would have been nice to have been given a few more chances, because I only started 3 games in those 8, so the other 5 were all subs appearances. And one of those starts only lasted 27 minutes, because I played in Dublin when the crowd trouble, they abandoned the game after 27 minutes. And so my 2 other starts for England were 1994 and 1997. So I had 2 starts really that were 3 years apart, and that was it. So didn't really have a chance to establish an international career at that. So
normally they get in a squad and they have a bit of a run, don't they? They get to give them a chance, 4 or 5 games even.
Yeah,
off the bat.
Just, I mean, talking about that, and I mean, with John, you're an advocate of no door, no go. No loyalty in football. And just, I mean, what were your metrics of success, if you will? Like at that point, what was your aim? What was you happy with? What did you see as successful when those opportunities come to move on and potentially get more England caps, but staying true to your club?
Yeah, no, I always felt like, well, firstly, I was happy at Southampton, and that's kind of the most important thing for me. Secondly, I always felt like I owed Southampton something, because they were the ones that gave me my chance to be a professional footballer. That's all I wanted to do since I was a kid. And they gave me that opportunity. So I always felt like, I owe them something. And I didn't want to, when I say this, it sounds a bit arrogant, but it doesn't mean to be. So I didn't want to be in a position where if I left Southampton and then they got relegated the following season, I'd feel guilty about that, because I saw that as my football club, and that's my job to keep them up.
Yeah.
And so had they got relegated, I think I would have felt really bad about that.
Is a lot of that distilled from the team being built around you? That responsibility?
No, not really. I think it was built with around the relationship I had with the fans.
Yeah.
So from a really early age, from the age of 17 when I made my debut, they were right on my side. So all those 2-3 years, Chris Nicol had me on the bench all the time. They were literally singing my name from about 20 minutes into the game. If we weren't winning, they'd be singing my name, telling Chris Nicol to get me on a pitch. And they were brilliant. They were just brilliant to me. And so that was a big reason why I stayed.
But it's like your family life and living in this area, forgetting football. If you'd been in banking, say, and you got offered a place to go and work in the city, was like happiness and family life and living with, was that part of your your success range?
So I never ever played football for the money. So I didn't go into football because I wanted to be rich. That wasn't what it was all about for me. So I wanted to, first and foremost, I wanted to entertain people. I wanted to show people how good I was at football. So I was a bit of a show off. The winning side of things seems strange for a professional footballer to say this, but the winning side of things was kind of secondary to me. I wanted to entertain people first and foremost, and then if we won, that's a bit of a bonus.
Yeah.
So a bit like you'd been right up at Newcastle with Keegan, wouldn't you?
Exactly. Yeah, that would have suited me.
Lost 6-5 with Tissier 4, set one up. It don't matter, does it? They've enjoyed it. They've enjoyed the game.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, my happiness is what I put above money and trophies, basically, and that's why I stayed where I did. I nearly joined Spurs.
Yeah, I was just
I was going to say. So the closest I came was Spurs came in for me in 1990. So I spoke to Spurs. They were the only team I ever spoke to, representatives from Spurs. I never spoke to anyone else. Obviously, I was a Spurs fan as a kid, so it was a bit of a pull. My dad was a Spurs fan. Obviously, Clem was my hero, and so he'd already left Spurs at that point. So I was interested. I was young. I was interested, and I was just about to get married. So I was 21 years of age, and I actually spoke to Spurs agreed a contract with Spurs and actually signed the contract. So I'd signed a contract quite illegally. So obviously I was still on the contract at Southampton. But the plan was that contract would then be just put away in the solicitor's office and was only going to be bought out at the end of the season when the two clubs agreed a fee. So that was the plan. Now, as I said, I was just about to be married at the end of that season, and my fiancée didn't want to go and live in London. And so that was my decision. I either joined Spurs or I got married. So I did. I got married, and 6 years later I was divorced.
Should have gone to London.
But to this day, and I will always say this, and I mean it from the bottom of my heart, I have no regrets about making it. I made the decision, my wife to be told me what she thought. I took that on board. I made my decision, and I stick by that decision, and I don't have any regrets whatsoever about spending my whole career at Southampton.
So do you know when you've obviously signed this contract at Spurs?
Yeah.
Obviously, we're not interested in figures at all, but so what's your contract like that you've signed at Spurs compared to your one that you're on at Southampton?
Now, that's the interesting thing, because what I'd agreed with Southampton, with Spurs, when I changed my mind, my agent then went and negotiated a contract with Southampton, a new contract with Southampton. I won Young Player of the Year that year. So I went in and did a new contract, and it was pretty much the same as what Spurs were going to pay me. Almost. Hardly anything in it.
It worked out.
So, back in those days, it wasn't that much. But then soon after that, it all started going, the money started to go up a little bit, and the bigger clubs were paying bigger money. And so when it came to 1995, when Chelsea wanted to buy me, I was on about, what was I on about there? I would have been on about 1995, probably about 1,500 quid a week, 1,700 quid a week, something like that. And then Chelsea were going to try and buy me for about 7 million quid. So, the wages then would have been quite a lot different.
Yeah.
Chelsea would have been probably looking at 10, 15 grand a week, as opposed to like being on 1,500 quid a week. And so that was quite a big difference. Obviously not the same as what you're getting now, but in that day.
But it's relative, isn't it?
It is relative.
It's like if you're on 20 grand at Southampton and Chelsea offer you 150.
Do you not think about just going and getting a copy of that contract and taking it back?
Yeah. So there was a nice story behind that Chelsea bid, because Glenn Hoddle was manager of Chelsea at the time. But the guy that really liked me and wanted to get me there was Matthew Harding. I don't know if you remember Matthew. I got a stand named after him at Chelsea, and he was a big fan of mine. He desperately wanted me to play for Chelsea. So he was just starting to try and do a takeover of the club when Ken Bates was there. And so he was quite heavily involved with financing the club. So he rang up Laurie McMenemy, who was the director of football at Southampton at the time. And he rang Laurie up and he went, Laurie, we want to buy Matt Le Tissier. Laurie told me this story. So Laurie said, I said to him, look, we don't want to sell him. We don't want to sell him, and the lad's happy where he is. So end the conversation. And Laurie went, in fact, the only way Matt Le Tissier will ever be your player is if you buy Southampton Football Club. So Matthew Harding went, oh, that's a good idea. he said, I could buy it. He said, and change its name to Chelsea on Sea. So with that, the conversation ended. Laurie put the phone down. He didn't think anything of it. And then a couple of days later, in the post, Laurie receives a cheque for 7 million quid, right? Made out to Chelsea on Sea, signed by Matthew Harding. And Laurie kept this cheque all this time. He put it in a little frame, and there it is. Oh. So a couple of years ago, Laurie said, I've kept this all this time. He said, but I think you should have this because it was all about you, really. So he gave me that.
You know what I'd be doing? I'd be changing my name to
just
Chelsea. My people.
I was just going to say so.
Thank you very much, Matthew. That's incredible.
So yeah, that's a quite nice little story behind that transfer. That didn't happen.
Was that Glenn Hoddle?
Glenn was manager of Chelsea, yeah.
You didn't speak to him?
So two things happened with those two stories. So after I changed my mind about joining Spurs, I rang my agent up and I went, I've just changed my mind. I'm not going. And he went, right, okay, no problem. He said, I'll let him know. He wasn't, my agent was great, but it wasn't pushy at all. You know, he was straight as a die. So he said, I'll let him know. So he rings him up, and then I get a phone call 5 minutes later. And he went, I've told him. He said, but Terry Venables wants to speak to you. Terry was manager of Spurs at the time. He said, Terry wants to speak to you. And I went, no, I've made up my mind. I don't want to speak to him. That was it. And then when the Chelsea thing happened, my agent rang me and went, you know, do you want to join Chelsea? And I went, no. And the same thing happened. He rang me back and he went, Glenn Hoddle wants to speak to you. Now, bear in mind, Spurs fan, Glenn Hoddle's my hero. But I'm happy where I was. So he rang me back and he went, Glenn wants to speak to you. And I thought, I can't speak to him. I'll melt.
Yes, I'll sign.
So I just went, no, I don't want to speak to him. I made up my mind. And that was it. So then obviously Terry Venables went on to become the next England manager. And then after Chelsea, Glenn went on to become the next England manager. And I fucked both of them off. Wouldn't even take a phone call from them. So I probably didn't do myself any favours when it came to my England career.
It's all coming to fruition now, really. They all thought you were a bit of an arsehole. So was it just straight, Chelsea want to sign you? No. Or did you put the phone down and have an hour, a couple of days to think about it, or just no, not for me?
Yeah, it was straight no. Yeah, I didn't even really think about the Chelsea one at all. Yeah, and the only other time that, I'm looking back at it now, I'm thinking, why did he do this, right? But my agent rang me, it was like 91, 92. And he rang me up and he went, he said, Matt, I need to speak to you. I said, all right. He said, can you come meet me? He was in North London. He said, come meet me at Heathrow. He said, I need to speak to you. One of the top clubs in Europe are interested in signing you. I need to speak to you about it. So why I didn't just go, well, who is it? Just tell me over the phone. But I didn't. And I just went, oh, right, okay. Yeah, no problem. I'll come. So I drove up to Heathrow and sat down in this hotel at Heathrow. And he went, right, he said, one of the top clubs. Now, if I said to you, one of the top clubs in Europe want to sign you, bearing in mind this is like early 90s.
Well, you're thinking Barcelona, Real Madrid straight away, aren't you?
Exactly. So I was thinking that as well. And
obviously, I wouldn't have been thinking it if the phone call up on me.
Shamrock Rovers.
And so he went, Liverpool are interested in signing you. And I was like, okay, I was thinking Real Madrid or Barcelona, but Liverpool's not bad. They'd gone off the ball a little bit at that point for a couple of years. But I was like, not really. I don't really want to go. No disrespect to the north of England, but I'm quite happy in the south of England, and I'm quite happy where I am. So I didn't even.
So did it mean that Liverpool were like in the European Cup, or?
No, because this is like in the early 90s. They were not. They'd won the league in 1990 for the last time, and then they kind of went, and that was then they went obviously till a couple of years back when they won the Premier League. Like, they'd gone all that time without winning the Premier League, obviously.
So it's easy it's probably not easy, but if it would have been Barcelona, Real Madrid, would you get it the old, no, I'm not bothered about speaking to, I mean, the managers were back then. You
don't know when you're in that situation until that's put in front of you. I mean, given that I'd turned down everyone else, I probably would have turned them down. But
you drove to North London, you didn't even take a fucking phone call.
It
must have been half a little. Oh, no, then took my tan up.
Yeah, but yeah, no, I don't know. That would have been Real Madrid or Barcelona playing in the Nou Camp or the Bernabeu.
Going back to Alan Ball.
Yeah.
Obviously, you were his boy. Did he used to let you off with stuff?
His man management of me was brilliant. For me. I mean, I've got to be honest. A few of the other lads didn't like him very much because if you were a good player, he respected you and he gave you a bit of leeway. I'll give you one example of this. We went to Bangor, the pre-season that he did, and he did one pre-season. And we were in Northern Ireland, and the secretary had booked our our trip had obviously never been to Bangor before because we were booked into a lovely hotel, but it was right next door to the biggest nightclub in Bangor. As you boys know, pre-season trip with a nightclub right next door to the hotel is not a great idea. And after
Stock up on the Malibu, you coming in?
Absolutely. And after the second game, Bawley gave us the day off. So we could do whatever we wanted within reason. So we were going to go and play golf. We were waiting in reception at 11 o'clock that morning. And Gaffer comes down and says, right, lads, what are you doing? So we're going to play golf, Gaffer. So taxi beer in about 20 minutes. He went, he said, there's a little bakery just round the corner. He said, do you fancy a bit of breakfast before you go? Oh, yeah, that'd be nice. So the five of us walk round to this bakery. As we get there, Bawley notices that the pub across the road is just open. And he looked back as he went, never mind breakfast. He said, do you fancy a drink? A bit like, well, it'd be rude not to. It's Gaffer. Can't turn him down. So we went, yeah, all right. So anyway, we went for a drink, and needless to say, we never played golf that day. And 7 hours later, we came out the pub. Yeah, four of us walking not too bad because we were finely tuned athletes who could take our alcohol, and me. And no, bless him, Bawley, he was only little, right? He didn't take his drink that well. He's pissed as a fart. So we walked back to the hotel. The four of us go into reception. We turn right into the restaurant to meet the rest of the lads for our evening meal. Gaffer comes in. He don't go to the restaurant. He's gone left. He's gone upstairs, bed, pissed. Brilliant. Now, I was the captain at this point. So I've gone in the restaurant. I've gone, lads, I said, you're not going to believe it. I said, for the last 7 hours, we've been in the pub with the Gaffer. Best thing is, he's pissed and he's gone to bed. We can go out. So we did about 9 or 10 of us went out, a few silly drinking games as you do, and inevitably we ended up coming back to this biggest nightclub in Bangor right next to our hotel. The DJ in the nightclub was obviously a massive football fan because he recognised us all as we were coming into the club, and he was introducing us one by one over his microphone.
Take me out.
But what we didn't realise at this point in the evening is that Bawley's bedroom backed immediately onto the nightclub, and the walls weren't that thick. He could hear every word the DJ had been saying. So
he didn't even have to find out off anybody. He just lay in bed. He's writing these names down as they're coming in.
So when we start rolling in about 2:30 in the morning into the hotel, he stood in reception waiting for us, right? Because he knows where we are. So he's waiting for us in reception. And obviously, as I said, I was the captain at the time, so I thought it was only fair and my responsibility that I should be the one that came in last. And when I rolled in about 3 o'clock in the morning, I was greeted by one of the funniest sights I think I ever saw in my career. It was our Gaffer at 5'4", giving the biggest bollocking of his life to our goalkeeper, Dave Besant, 6'4". And anyway, he must have spotted me under Bez's armpit or something because he sent all the other lads off to bed. He went, he said, I want to word with you upstairs now. Well, I can't tell you how quickly I sobered up in that situation. All sorts of things were going through my mind, like 2-week fine, captaincy get taken off me, all that shit. Wife thought I was in bed 4 hours ago, all that. And he took me upstairs to the first floor of this hotel. And I went, in those hotels by the lift, you get a nice little sofa. I'd always wondered what that was there for. I found out that night. He went, fucking sit there. So I sat down on this sofa and he comes sit next to me. He went, look, he said, I've just had to give a massive bollocking to Dave Besant, Ian Dowie, Jim Magilton. He said, they're my senior professionals. He said, and they're setting a bad example to the young kids in my team. He said, and you're the captain. He said, but the way you're playing, he said, you can do whatever you want to get yourself to bed. Now that is man management for you. Let me tell you. I got 30 goals that season. He knew what he was doing.
But that goes back to what earlier. You're not bothered what your players are doing if they're performing.
Exactly. I was doing it for him on the pitch, and that was what was important.
Would he have come down on you if you weren't doing it? If you had a few games where you were off it, would he?
He probably would have given me a bit of leeway. He would have given me a few more than a few games.
To be fair, you must have shipped some Malibu if you've gone from morning to 3 o'clock.
That was a proper session, yeah. It was a good effort. It was a good effort. I would drink Malibu all day. Honestly, it's like weak as anything, isn't it? It's like half the strength of vodka. It is like drinking pop.
Just going back to the England stuff again, the 98, when you play in the England B team and score an hat-trick, you must have been like, what have I got to do here? Surely.
Yeah, that was an interesting one because that that was probably, that game against Russia B at Loftus Road was probably the best 90-minute game of football I ever had in my career. Was the best performance I ever had. Admittedly, Russia weren't a great team. They were quite young. They weren't great, but there was also other players on that pitch. I think Les Ferdinand, played. Darren Anderton might have played. I'm just trying to think who else played in that game. But there were certainly 2 or 3 of the other lads that played in that game who did go to the World Cup, who didn't shine in that game. But yeah, I scored the hat-trick. I actually hit the post and hit the crossbar that game as well. Honestly, it was the best 90 minutes I've ever had. I felt like I could have done anything with the ball that night, and everything just kind of fell my way. So at the end of that game, I didn't really assume that was enough to get me in the World Cup squad, because I knew that they were going to pick a squad to go to La Manga of 30. And then out in La Manga, that squad would be trimmed down to 23. So what I did feel like after that night is that I felt like I'd done enough to make the squad of 30, which will give me a chance to go out to La Manga and prove that I'm, valuable enough to take to the World Cup.
Another quick mention as well, quick breaking play for our friends at VPN, NordVPN, may I add, the number one VPN service that's out there. If you're not aware what VPN is, it's got military, I've heard, military standard security, NordVPN, so you can...
Essential in this day and age, isn't it?
Protect all your bank details, your passwords, ups your security, and not just that, you can bounce your geolocation. So we've said this before, haven't we? You can get on Netflix, for instance.
On that, Chrissy, sorry.
Go on.
You can get the Mexico Netflix, and it's cheaper than the British one.
Oh, see, that's saving you money right there.
Yeah. I imagine there's a lot of cartel stuff on there.
Yeah,
but you still get all the same stuff as what you get over here. And we've talked about before, your football matches. So if there's a game you want to watch, and it's being broadcast in a different country, you can use your VPN, pop over there, and you can watch that match. You're all over it, aren't you, John? Every time I see your stories, you're watching a different game.
Honestly, you know why? Comes with my fancy football team, Matt.
Never watched so much footy, have you?
No, honestly. The only football I didn't watch was Liverpool and that this weekend. Went to the foreign stuff now.
But it's the fastest VPN in the world. There's no lagging, no buffering.
No buffering as well.
No buffering. We don't do none of that buffering at NordVPN. And as always, there's a link in the description. And with a link, you can sign up and get a 30-day free trial. How about that? So you can just test it out.
Just out of curiosity, the Mexican Netflix, it's not in Mexican, is it?
No.
Still in English.
Just do, yeah.
Obviously, I know that. I'm just thinking for people.
Yeah,
who
for
might
everybody
be
else.
thinking
Answering the questions before they're asked, John.
Yeah, you're all right.
One step
having
ahead.
to learn Mexican, aren't you, to say fucking $1.99 a month on Netflix just to watch their Coronation Street. I imagine their Coronation Street's a lot more exciting than ours.
Well, the link's in the description as always, and you can get that 30-day free trial. How about that?
It's a good offer, isn't it? It's a good offer.
Later.
So then at the end of the season, I went back to Guernsey for a few days to see my family back there once the season had finished. And it was there, I was sat at my brother's house. I think it was sat outside in the garden. And I remember my brother coming out and he went, "The squad's just been announced. The squad of 30 has just been announced for La Manga." He said, "You're not in it." And I just went, "Oh, okay, better book holiday now then."
Were you not blasé, but you were like, "Oh, all right then"? Or were you
not
like,
really? It was a bit of a. It was a bit of a.
Put another sausage on that barbecue.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Yeah, it was a bit of a blow. I must, there's not too many things that kind of I let get me down, but that decision there not to be involved in the 30, given kind of the way I'd finished the season at Southampton as well, it wasn't just that B game. I'd scored a lot of goals for Southampton in the back end of that season, so I had a really strong finish to the season. So to not, and I kind of knew the worst bit about it was that I was 29 at that point. So I kind of knew that was my last chance to go to a World Cup. And that was the worst bit about it all. It's kind of that realisation that, as a kid, I wanted to be a footballer. I wanted to play for England. I want to play a World Cup. And that was the moment where it was just like, you're never going to play in a World Cup. So that was that was a huge disappointment to me. And probably looking back on my career at Southampton, that probably had more of an effect on me than I realised at the time, because I never, after that season, I never really reached the heights again that I was reaching those seasons previous to that.
Did you think it would be you or Gaza that would go?
Well, so when he went, that was my initial reaction. So I kind of thought, oh well, he's going to take Gaza. He doesn't think me and Gaza can be in the same team, whatever. And then he goes to La Manga. The squad gets trimmed down to 23, and Gaza's not in the 23 either. And that's when I was like, geez, what's he? Why is he's not even taking Gaza, and he's not taking me? And instead, we went with the creative midfielders of Rob Lee and Dave Batty and people like that. And that's no disrespect to those two guys, because they do a job for the team. But in terms of the creative side of things, there wasn't a huge amount of creativity. That obviously Bex was there. But I thought, at least one of us would have gone. Because if you've got a squad of 23, there's going to be 3 or 4 players at least, I would say, out of that squad that during a World Cup won't even get a minute on the pitch. They're just carrying the bags. And so why wouldn't you have in that 23 as many people who could change a game than you could possibly want? Because if the games are tight in World Cups, you need people who can do something a little bit different. Yeah. And me and Gaza could do something a little bit different. And there were players in that squad who couldn't really do something so different that it was going to change the course of a game. So that was a huge disappointment to me. Probably one of the biggest blows of my career was not getting in that 98 World Cup squad.
You think a lot of managers were struggling to work out where to play you? Because every England manager in my lifetime up until Southgate have been rigid, like stubborn with the formation. 4-4-2. Like playing Scholesy on the left. Do you know what I mean? Would you think that had played a part?
Quite possibly. So I think it was probably difficult for them to justify doing for England what Alan Ball was doing for Southampton. Alan Ball could do it at Southampton because I think he had, players around me that were willing to do my work, if you like, and be accepting of the fact that when they get the ball, that's who they got past to. When you then go up a level and you're playing with really top class players, no disrespect to my Southampton teammates, but it would probably be a lot more difficult to convince those top draw players that we're going to build a team around this one player and you lot have got to pass to him whenever you can. So, you wouldn't expect that. So it would have been probably difficult for a manager to think, where can I fit him into my team? But I think the last game I played for England was the Italy game in the World Cup qualifier in '97, where we lost 1-0 and Zola scored. And in that game, I just played off we had 4-4-2 essentially, but I was just playing off of Alan Shearer. And that was probably the only position really that an England manager could try and find for me, even though it wasn't really my strong point, being a second centre forward.
Is that the game your brother got stitched up with?
Yeah, that was so my brother got accused of leaking the England team. I mean, it wasn't a great start to the day when Glenn Hoddle pulled me in after training and went, "I need a word with you about your brother." I was like, "My brother? You don't even know my brother. What are you talking about my brother for?" And so apparently what had happened is one of the national newspapers had printed what they thought was the England team for the game that night, and somebody had gone to my brother and gone, my brother was a bit naive, but the reporter's gone to my brother and gone, "Here's the England team for tonight's game. Isn't it great that Matt's in the team?" And my brother obviously went, "Oh, it's in the paper, so I can talk about it." So he went, "Oh, yeah, it's brilliant. So we're so proud of him, blah, blah, blah." And then they go back and he's basically just confirmed that I am in the team, but thinking that, the team's out. Everyone knows what the team is anyway. Yeah. So my brother gets a load of stick, but really, I kind of found out a little bit later that one of the players that wasn't in the starting 11 was a bit pissed off and had given the team to a journalist the night before, and he put it in the paper. So it wasn't my brother that leaked the team, it was one of the subs who was a bit pissed off.
Found a fall guy for it.
And they found a fall guy in my brother for it.
I think it's a great story, though.
Yeah. So, 7 years of mental health counselling and my brother's all right now, so it's fine. And you can laugh about it.
Well, at least you can take away from that 98 situation that other than scoring 6 goals, there's nothing else you could have possibly done.
No, exactly. I couldn't have done any more that night. As I said, it was the best 90-minute performance of my career, and so if that wasn't good enough for the manager, that was out of my hands.
Just sad as well that you didn't reach the heights again after that. That had that much of an effect on you.
Yeah, it did, and that's kind of when the injury started. I think I broke my arm or shattered my elbow joint in pre-season the following year, so I missed a. That was the start of that season, the 97-98 season. I shattered my elbow, so I'd had a poor start of the season because I was injured, and then I finished it strong with scoring a lot of goals at the back end. But then the following season was when I was getting old, and I started getting calf strains and hamstring strains, which I'd never really had before. I think I had one pulled hamstring in the first 10 years of my career, and that was it. I might have gone over on my ankle a couple of times, but nothing serious. And then from that 98 season onwards, it was just one thing after another: calf, hamstring, quads. And it was always a muscle injury. So I kind of I retired when I was 33, and I kind of got away with, I think, a lot of wear and tear from joints and things. So my knees are good and my ankles are good, and it was just the soft tissue injuries that kind of put an end to me in the end.
When was it that you told Hoddle to fuck off then?
That was when he came to Southampton as manager. After the England job, he came to Southampton about a year and a bit after.
What did you think of him before that? Before he left you out altogether, what did you think of him? Did you get on all right? And was he good manager?
Odd. It was a bit odd.
Never meet your heroes.
Yeah, it was a bit like that.
All right, Andrew.
It was a bit like that. Yeah, he wasn't a very warm person. Wasn't a very welcoming person. Given that it was kind of pretty highly publicised during my career that I was a Spurs fan, and he must have known that he was my hero because it was in the papers. Or I've never hidden that fact from anybody, and so he would have known. But there was just nothing there, no relationship. He wasn't a man manager. Brilliant coach for a manager. I think he was, in my 9 managers I had at Southampton, and Terry Venables as well, I think Glenn was the best manager at picking a formation and a team to exploit the opposition's weaknesses. Tactically, he was brilliant, but no man management skills at all. He just wasn't a person's person, and that was pretty sad for me, because I wanted to have a nice relationship with him, and he actually went out of his way at Southampton as manager at Southampton. Kind of went out of his way to pick on me in training, which I'd never really experienced before. Players would make mistakes in training, nothing would get said. I'd misplace one pass, and he'd be fucking right on my back, and I just thought, this is a bit weird. Why just me? And in the end, I snapped, and I did. I turned around and told him to fuck off, get off my case, that wasn't me at all. I never did that to any other manager, even if they dropped me, not to Ian Bramfoot, nobody, because I had respect for my managers, but I lost all respect for him as a manager. And that was, because he singled me out. Yeah.
Do you think that's because you were Mr. Southampton and he was the manager?
No. So what I think it was, and I don't know this, and I don't know if he'd ever admit to this, but throughout my career, I was always compared to him. So there was a lot of comparisons to the way that we played, the range of our passing, the spectacular goals from outside the box. And obviously people knew he was my hero, and that's who I based my game on, And I don't think he liked having somebody compared to him. So I think he thought
much higher.
He thought he's up there, and I'm down here.
Down.
Why are they comparing him to me when I'm so much better than him? Now, I don't know if he'd ever admit to that, but that's the that I got from my relationship with Glenn Hoddle.
Have you worked with him on telly? Like you've been sat in the studio with him at any point? No,
been on a few golf trips with him though. In fact, we ended up, we went to Dubai on a golf trip about, blimey, this must be 14 years ago now, I reckon. Must be. So I hadn't really seen him very much from the day that he left Southampton as manager to when we go on this golf trip in Dubai. It was a footballer's golf classic thing. So you have like one footballer in each team of 4 players, 3 other corporate guys. And so one morning I went down to breakfast and he was sat there at breakfast on his own with his mates. And, and I thought, do you know what? After all these years, I think it's about time we kind of just... So I thought, yeah. And I thought, he's my hero. And I literally, I went to sit with him and I was almost like choking up. I was like really emotional because this guy was my hero. So I sat there and I went, Glenn, I said, it's been a long time since Southampton, and I wanted to apologise for the way that perhaps I behaved at Southampton, when I told you to fuck off. And I said, it was probably frustration on my part, and I wanted to just apologise to you. And that you were my hero as a kid, loved you as a football player, and I just wanted to apologise. And so the response that I was expecting was what most normal human beings in that situation might have gone, do you know what? Maybe I wasn't. Maybe I need to apologise as well for the way that I was with you. I'm still waiting for that apology. I did my best.
Again?
I tried really hard.
He'd have got a fucking boiled egg on his head.
I'm still waiting. So that's kind of... but I've seen Glenn at golf days now, and he actually comes and talks to me now and says hello. And I think the experience that he went through a few years ago with his ticker, I think that may have just made him a different person, I think. Because I've seen a better person since that incident. Yeah. There you go. He still hasn't apologised.
He's getting a fucking...
Can you remember the exact response? Was it thanks?
Yeah, it pretty much was yeah, no problem. Apology accepted. Now fuck off my table.
I'm having a quiet breakfast on me own.
The tea time is just about off you go. So yeah, that was interesting.
In the managers after Alan Ball, does that mantra continue with building the team around you?
What was really strange is that the next manager after Alan Ball was Dave Merrington. Now, Dave was my youth team coach at Southampton. He is the guy that I credit with having the biggest influence on my career. He was amazing. As a youth team coach, he was unbelievable. The values that he instilled in us, the work ethic, the morals that he instilled in us, the mental strength that he instilled in us was something that I'll be eternally grateful for. And he was brilliant. He was the one that was pushing Chris Nicholl to get me in the first team because he recognised that I had something that a lot of other players didn't have. And he was brilliant for me. So bearing that in mind, I would have expected Dave to have continued what Alan was doing. He'd been at the club. He'd seen how I'd been playing for the last 2 years, having that free role. But we started off the season and the first few results weren't very good, and he kind of panicked a little bit and went back into a 4-4-2 kind of thing, which didn't really suit me. And so that season was a bit of a disappointment.
It's one of them, innit? it's not suiting anybody. That he's not getting the best out of you, and the team are going to be struggling because you don't want to play in that position.
Yeah. So that was a big disappointment that it didn't work out better with Dave, given how highly I thought of him as my youth team coach.
It was Souness when he came in.
Souness was an interesting one because he obviously his reputation goes before him. Yeah. So we'd heard from, as you do with your mates around the game, we'd heard of what he was like as a manager and how fiery he was, and but he just had his heart bypass. He had a quadruple heart bypass operation, so he was obviously on a lot of tablets, which kept him nice and calm. So exactly.
Took another Tramadol.
So when he was at us for that season, he was actually quite calm, but again, we stayed up on the last day of that season as well. Actually, just then we got beat at Aston Villa on the last day and still stayed up because other results went our way, so we were quite lucky. But yeah, it was he brought in actually some good players to the club. Amongst those good signings, we also played Ali Deer, who was George Ware's cousin, for a few minutes in a Premier League game, which was another interesting one. And that was Graham's legacy at Southampton Football Club.
Do you remember
I got duped by George Ware's cousin.
Do you remember him? Did you see him in training before?
Yeah, he trained with us, honestly. And I'm watching him in training, and I'm thinking, has he won a competition to come and train with us or something? Like, he was crap, honestly. Players know when a player can play.
Yeah.
And I'm watching him and going, he's not a player. He's not a player. And so anyway, we trained for a couple of days leading up to this game against Leeds, and then we rock up at the Dell 1:30 Saturday afternoon, sat in the change room, and he sat in there. And we're like, fucking hell, that was a good competition. He's going to get to hear the team talk and everything. So anyway, Suey comes in and he names the team, and then he goes substitutes, blah, blah, and Ali Deer. We were like that. What? Right, have we got some kind of injury crisis here that we don't know about? So anyway, he sat on the bench, and after about half an hour, he comes on as a run around, misses an absolute sitter. Right, he completely missed his kick in front of goal. Runs around for a bit, couldn't trap a bag of cement, and eventually Graham Souness, he's had enough, and he substitutes him. So he came on as a sub, and then he got substituted, and then we never ever saw him again after that. He disappeared.
It might
Honestly,
be Souness Garden.
he was staying in a hotel, and even the people at the hotel went, "Oh, he's just fucked off. He hadn't paid his bill or anything." So he left the bill unpaid, just gone.
Took all shampoo with him and slippers.
So the bloke who is renowned as probably the worst player ever to play in the Premier League is obviously one of ours at Southampton. And the worst bit about it was the bloke that he came on for as a sub was fucking me. So that's not embarrassing at all. So yeah, that was interesting times.
Did he say anything to him after the game? Or was it just embarrassment?
It was just embarrassment. I think.
Get us out of here.
Just embarrassment. It was just weird. It was just bizarre. I mean, you couldn't get away with that in this day and age, could you? I mean, you couldn't do that in this day and age. There'd be more checks and balances going on than just some bloke rocking up for a trial. But that's what used to happen back in the 90s. We used to get these random guys turn up for a trial and we're like, who's this geezer? Like, he's playing in like the 7th division of non-league, but we thought he was quite good. He can come and have a trial. And we had when Egil Ostenstad came, actually we had 2 Norwegians come at the same time, 2 centre forwards, and we couldn't afford both of them. And we wanted to sign both of them. We couldn't afford them both, so we had to choose between one or the other. So we signed Egil Ostenstad, and the other one that we didn't sign was Tor Andre Flo. Yeah.
Did he go to Chelsea then instead of...
Did all right as well, didn't he?
Yeah. And another one that came on trial to Southampton as a youngster was a mate of mine who I'd played football against since we were 10 years of age, was Graham Lasso. So Graham came to Southampton, had a trial. Chris Nichol went, no, not good enough. He went to Chelsea, signed for them.
Oh, dear.
Yeah.
How did you get on with Carlton?
Eventually, we got on all right. The first few months were a bit interesting. It's fair to say, me and Carlton didn't see eye to eye when he first arrived.
Initially.
And it was probably my fault to a certain extent because I think on one of his very first days in training, I was on the same side as him in a five-a-side match. And I wasn't always the best trainer in the world, and obviously in this five-a-side game I'd given the ball away quite cheaply and then hadn't bothered to track back and try and win it back, so I was just stood up the top of the pitch and Carlton runs back and tackles this geezer and then stands up and he starts digging me out in training for not running back, and I just looked at him and I went, Carlton, you haven't been here very long, have you? I said, what happens here is the players that can play, they play, and your job is to go and fetch the ball and give it to me.
I can imagine that like a dagger in his heart.
That went down like a lead balloon. So for about the next 2 months, he barely spoke to me. And then eventually we kind of found a bit of common ground. I started going out a bit in Southampton. He liked to drink. And I'll tell you what it was, though. I've never known anybody in my life who could drink the way that Carlton Palmer drank, have as little sleep as he had, still turn up to training the next morning and be the first in the running. It was unbelievable.
It's an art, isn't it?
It is an unbelievable.
Underrated.
I mean, you could do like a 12-hour session on the beer, have like 2 hours sleep, rock up for training. I've had like 11 hours sleep, and he leaves me for dead. How does he do that? He's some kind of freak of nature, is what he was. And I've got to tell you, for the first 6 to 9 months at Southampton, I reckon, I played against Carlton quite a lot, but I reckon that first 6 or 9 months at Southampton was probably about the best I saw him play in his career. It was brilliant for us the first 6 or 9 months. Really was. It was good, and then kind of, I don't know if the drink caught up with him, the partying caught up with him a little bit. He kind of went off the ball, and I don't know what it was, but he kind of lost what he had for that first 6 or 9 months, and he kind of went off the ball, and that's actually when we started getting on a bit better. We were both going out.
You weren't as far behind him the next day.
Yeah, it was interesting. I loved it. I remember having we were doing this thing on the bus as you did back in the day, like we were on a long coach journey to somewhere. Everywhere's a long coach journey from Southampton, and we were on our way up north, and we're just having a chat on the bus, and it's one of those conversations where you go on him. So if you won £1 million tomorrow, what would you do with it? So we're having this conversation, and we're going, buy a nice house. And you know what's coming, don't you?
I've got a feeling.
So we're all going, yeah, cars, holidays. And it gets round to Carlton. Carlton, what would you do? He went, I'd put it with the other three. And I was like, you twat.
I like it though.
That's exactly what I thought would come in. I didn't go with 3 or 2.
Yeah.
But that's just how he is. I think if you...
Oh, yeah, it's great. We get on fine now, But we did have a little period because I used to do this thing in my after dinner speech where it's not nice, but it was tongue in cheek, right? And I think Carlton kind of took it a bit personally when he really shouldn't have done. I was only just pissing about. But in my after dinner speech, when I talk about England, and I'll go and I say something like Matt Le Tissier, what was that? Matt Le Tissier got eight caps for England. Carlton Palmer, 18 caps. And we wonder why we haven't won anything since 1966. Right? I did that. She said it was just a mess about, throw about line, just messing about. And somebody obviously who knew Carlton was at one of my speeches. And he rings up Carlton and goes, you know what Matt Le Tissier said about you? And Carlton, being Carlton, what bastard was he? So he then goes on Soccer AM, absolutely slaughters me on Soccer AM, does a book, slaughters me in his book. And just going, my career was better than Matt Le Tissier's. What did he ever achieve? He underachieved. And I was like, fuck, Carl, I was only joking. Fucking hell. Do you know what I mean? You don't have to go slaughtering me on telly and in your book. And then he obviously had his problem with his ticker a few years back, and I just messaged him, and we started talking again, and he's good as gold now. It was funny.
Seems to be the way forward, doesn't it, for arseholes, that? A bit of that ticker and you turn into a lovely guy.
Yeah, exactly.
I wish something happened with your fucker.
Can you speak much about the spread betting thing?
Yeah, I can speak about that. It's fine. I don't work for Sky anymore, so that matter. That was Gordon Watson's fault. That was Flash's fault. I'd never really heard of spread betting, to be honest. I had a bet back in the day. I mean, we were allowed to back in the day. I know. I can't remember when it changed, but I used to go. There used to be a bookies about 300 yards from the Dell, and I used to go in there before the game on a Saturday and back myself to score the first goal. I mean, it was quite good odds actually at the time. But nobody batted an eyelid. Do you know what I mean? As long as you weren't betting on your team to lose, no one batted an eyelid if you were backing yourself to score or back your team to win. So anyway, I used to do that. And then Flash can't. He said, you had spread betting? I went, no, I haven't got a clue. He went, well, you can bet on anything now. He said, you can bet on corners, when the first free kick's going to be, when the first throw-in's going to be. I was like, all right. And he went, well, he said, my mates have got spread betting accounts. He said, we're on telly against Wimbledon next week. He said, and they can bet on the first throw-in in a game. He said, and if if we get a throw-in really early, they'll make loads of money from it. He said, and they'll probably drop you a few quid. So I was like, how does that work? He went, well, we just have to get the kick-off. He said, and we get the kick-off, and from kick-off, you just boot the ball out of play. So well, that sounds pretty simple. He went, it is simple. He said, but the bookies are stupid. What are they doing that for? So anyway, all we had to do was obviously make sure we had kick-off. So we get to Sellers Park where Wimbledon were playing. I think Vinnie Jones was the captain. And so I've gone to Vinnie before the game. I've gone, Vinnie, what way do you like to kick in the second half? And he went, he said, we like to kick towards our fan at that end. And I went, all right. I said, you can kick that way in the second half if you let us have kick-off in the first half. And he went, yeah, all right. So that was it. Like, before we'd even flipped the coin, I knew we was having the kick-off. So anyway.
It's working out quite well then, isn't it?
I know, yeah. So we get the kick-off. Gordon rolls the ball back to me, and now it's live on telly, so I don't want to overhit this ball. Because it's too obvious. And I think I'm quite a good player. I can just clip this over Neil Shipley's head, make it look realistic. So the ball comes to me, and just as I'm about to strike it just takes a little bobble, right? And at that point, my heart sank because right from the moment I hit it, I thought, fuck it, that ain't enough.
Not enough club.
That ain't enough club. I've duffed that a little bit. And this is never reaching the touchline. So it goes straight at Ships. And Ships is obviously, what can he do? Hits Ships, goes back into play, and honestly, for the next 60 seconds, you see me and Gordon Watson running around like blue-ass flies trying to get the ball fucking boot out of play, because otherwise they're losing a fortune if this carries on.
It's just got to be in the first minute.
So it had to be before 60 seconds for them to make money, and the more before it was 60 seconds, the more money they make.
Right.
But if it goes after 75 seconds, every second after 75 seconds, they start losing money. So that can add up quite quick. And we managed to get the ball out, I think, between 60 and 75 seconds, which was that dead period where nobody won and nobody lost. So it was a lesson well learnt, and I did not do that again.
I can imagine Flash wanted to do it again, though.
He probably did, but I wasn't up for that after that experience. That was not a nice experience. And then I probably was a bit naive because I told that story in my book. I wrote a book and put the story in there as a warning, really, to other players to go, don't be such a twat like I was, and don't do stupid things like this. And with that, somebody at TalkSport got hold of it. I think it was the little short fella, Mike Parry. He decided that he was going to do an entire afternoon's programme on that story, and that I should be banned from all football and ostracised from the game because I told this story in my book. When basically I was telling it as a lesson for people to go, don't be an idiot. But he decided that this was a newsworthy story and he was going to make an entire radio show out of it, and I had to have a couple of weeks off of Sky while it all died down a little bit.
Calm down.
Yeah, calm down. So yeah, that was fun. Don't try that at home, kids. Don't do that.
Underclubbed.
Don't have underclubbed. Have it a complete duff, and it's way short.
I think before we finish up, we've got to mention the penalties.
because obviously Mark Crossley
Speaks about every time I play golf with him on a Thursday morning.
It's a badge of honour. How many was it altogether?
I took 48.
One missed?
Just the one. Saved, actually, not missed.
Did you always go
There's
to
a
the
difference.
same place? Or
No.
I'm not sure if there'd have been as much video analysis back then with which way the keepers dove and all that. Or
To be honest, I never took any notice of where the goalkeeper dived. I never looked into that ever. So I just had a lot of faith in my ability to be able to side foot the ball quite powerfully into one corner or the other. And I know that if I'm fairly accurate and I got enough pace on the ball, that 47 times out of 48 will go in. And so I didn't care about the goalkeeper, frankly. All that mattered to me was what was in front of me. And the one that Norm saved, he times he kind of went to go into my favourite corner, and he timed it just right. So he kind of went, and at that moment I go, oh, he's going, but he only went a little bit, and then he flings himself that way. So he goes, and he caught me just at the right time, and so I've gone there. And the worst bit about it was that he actually parried it straight back to me. And I was in that much shock that I'd missed a penalty that from 7 yards out, I'd managed to put the ball over the bar with my left foot. And missing the rebound was way more embarrassing than missing the penalty, I can tell you. But fair play to him.
so I'm going to tell him you got fucking lucky.
He did get lucky.
It was a split second.
It was a split second. It was all it was. That's all it was.
What was your favourite goal?
Favourite goal was, my best goal was the one at Blackburn, which won goal of the season. 35 yards out, whipped into the top corner with a bit dip on it. Tim Flowers, no chance. Don't know why he bothered diving. But that wasn't my favourite goal. So that was my best goal. But my favourite goal was scoring the last ever league goal at the Dell. That moment in the last minute, I think it was the 88th minute of the game against Arsenal. We were drawing 2-2. It's the last ever league game at the Dell. And I hadn't scored a Premier League goal the whole season. So I'd been injured quite a bit that season. I think I'd scored one goal in the League Cup, and that was it. And I just kind of got back to a point where I was back training with the lads, but wasn't really match fit. Not that I ever was. And Stuart Gray, our manager, said to me about 4 days before the game, he said, look, for what you've done for Southampton Football Club, he said, you deserve to be on the pitch when the final whistle goes of the last ever league match. He said, so I'm going to make sure as manager, you're going to be sub on Saturday, and when the whistle goes, you're going to be on the pitch. So I thought, fair play. And every night I went to bed from that moment on, I was visualising how I was going to score the last goal at the Dell. And I literally was obsessed with the thought of, on Saturday, I want to be the last one to score a goal at the Dell. And I knew that all I needed was not even a half chance. I didn't even need a half chance. I just needed a chance of some description. And it was the weirdest feeling, because I knew as long as I had one chance, I knew it was going in. There was no other. And when the ball falls to me, I don't know if you've ever seen the goal, but the ball falls to me. It's a little bit behind me, and I'm having to swivel with my left foot and hit it on the half volley. And I'd say if I had that chance again, I reckon there's about a 1 in 20, 1 in 30 chance that I'd do the same again. Like, it was quite a difficult opportunity, but it was really weird, because as soon as the ball dropped and I knew that I was shooting a goal, I knew that it was going in. So as soon as the ball left my foot, I literally start celebrating, because I know it's going in. I know, because of the way I've hit it, that goalkeeper's got no chance. And I literally start wheeling away as soon as I've hit the ball, because I know it's on the way in. And the noise that stadium made was like nothing else I'd witnessed in the 15 years previous to that I'd played there. It was the most amazing moment, and that's why it's my favourite goal, and it was my last ever goal for Southampton. In fact, I should have retired after that goal. Because the next season I spent most of it injured, didn't score a goal. So I should just call it quits after that one. I should have just gone, thanks very much. That'll do me.
Thank you and good night.
But, I did have a testimonial the next season, so I couldn't retire just yet.
Was there another chance after your goal?
Yes. Yeah. So, that was in the 88th minute. And then we have another attack. And Chris Marsden, right? I mean, Maz is not renowned for his goal scoring. He hits this shot from the edge of the box. Honestly, I've never seen him hit a shot that good before. And Alex Manninger was in goal for Arsenal. And he's flown up to his right. He's tipped it over the crossbar. And honestly, I was like that. Thank fuck for that. I was on the right-hand side and I had to go and take the corner over the other side. So I'm running across the 18-yard box and I'm really stifling the urge to go and cuddle the goalkeeper. Thanks very much, mate. Anyway, I jog across really slowly, like even slower than I normally do, and I feel like I'm wasting as much time as possible here. I put the ball down in the quadrant, and I take a couple of strides back, and I think, no, I don't want to put this in the box. Someone might head this in. Right? So I stood there for a few seconds thinking, shit, what am I going to do? So, and Wayne Bridge was playing for us, left back at the time. He's up on the halfway line, so I kind of looked up at Bridgie. Like that. So Bridgie goes running down from left back all the way down. So I just play a short one to him. And as I roll the ball to him, the referee goes, blows the final whistle. I was like, that, get in.
Yes. Job done. Brilliant.
Good fun.
Obviously, we'll have to. There's a few controversies recently. Has there? I
hadn't noticed.
Have you been surprised with the repercussions that it's come with?
No, not really. No, I'm well aware of what the repercussions are. I take very little notice of the repercussions, to be honest with you. I think the people that are criticising me, I care not really for their opinions. I think a lot of them are morally bankrupt individuals, and quite frankly, their opinion means nothing to me. My close friends and my family know the sort of bloke I am. They know what I do for people, certainly in this area. They know how much good I've done, and their opinions are the only ones that are really important to me. So the repercussions are seriously. I mean, if they realised just how little they got to me, they'd stop.
Yeah,
they're water off a duck's back. I mean, I've had 50,000 people singing "You fat bastard" and what a big nose you've got. Do you know what I mean? A few numpties in the media.
What was the crack with the club?
That was my decision.
Was it?
Yeah. I took that decision because a load of people, a load of the people who were part of the old cancel culture were ringing up Southampton Football Club, sending emails going, oh, he shouldn't be an ambassador for the football club. And the football club are good as gold. They've always been very supportive of me. And I just said to him, look, I don't want you getting all that grief. So I think I'll step away from the role as ambassador. I'm not employed by Southampton Football Club. I'm not on the payroll of Southampton Football Club. If I do something for them, then I'll invoice them. So I don't have a weekly wage or a yearly wage from them. So it wasn't any big deal. And I just said, look, I'm just going to resign as ambassador, and then people will stop bothering you. Simple as that, really.
What does the future hold?
Whew. Who knows? What does the future hold?
You're golfing with us next Wednesday.
Yeah. Lots of golf, I hope. Lots of golf. No vaccine passports. I don't know. What's going on in the world the last couple of years has been very strange indeed. And there are some things that I think are going to have a profound effect on us as human beings. And unless we fight back against what is trying to be taken away from us, then I think the world's going to be a worse place. And that's why I've been prepared to stand up and say what I've been saying, because I don't like what is being predicted for us in the future. And that's why I've been happy to stand up and take the flak. And I'll continue to do that because I stand up for what I believe in. And people might have a different opinion to me, and that is all well and good by me. I don't have a problem with people. I don't expect people to believe everything I say, because I might be wrong. I might be wrong. I'm not arrogant enough to think that I know what's right, but I've got a reasonable amount of intelligence. I've got a lot of common sense, and the evidence that I've seen and been presented with over the last couple of years tells me that this world is not going in a very good direction. And so my opinion is that, we need to fight back against some of the stuff that's going on. And if somebody has a different opinion, that's fine. All I ask is that they do their own research and don't automatically take for granted that it is the truth, the stuff that comes out on the mainstream media. Because I'm sorry, but they don't always tell you the truth on the television. That might be a revelation to some people. At the end of the day, we don't really know what the truth is. You can believe what you want to believe, but how do you really know what's true and what's not true? And that's the big thing for me, is that I like to be given both sides of the story, and then I'm reasonably intelligent enough to have a look at the evidence from both sides and make up my own mind as to what I think is the truth, based on the evidence that's been provided. Now, what hasn't happened over the last couple of years is we haven't had both sides of the story. All we've been fed is one side of the story, and the other side of the story is completely censored, and people completely cancelled, social media accounts taken down. And I don't think that's the way a free society should behave. I think we should be able to tolerate all opinions, see both sides of the story, and make up your own mind about what's going on. And I will always stand up for those things. And I've been misrepresented quite a lot in the media because I've been very open in saying that I don't actually believe everything that the media tells me. I have no idea what percentage of the stuff that they do say is true, but I am 100% convinced that we are not told the truth 100% of the time. And that's my position. That's where I stand. And those views will continue to be misrepresented because the people that I'm telling you are not telling you the whole truth, are the ones that are criticising me. And they're going to criticise me because I don't believe them, not all the time. And that's as simple as that.
Was the absence of debate, was you shocked? When you initially brought up, especially within football, the connections possibly with all the cardiac issues.
Yep.
When you just bringing it up, was the absence of debate shocking to you? The fact that
absolutely, I believe that there has been a dereliction of duty from football authorities to not even want to investigate the rise in the issues of heart problems with young, fit footballers. It doesn't make any sense. And I had a conversation with Bobby Barnes, who tried to tell me that actually there's no increase, it's normal. This is all normal, what's happening. It's just that normally it doesn't get publicised. And I was like, whoa, hang on a minute, Bobby. I went, me and you played pretty much at the same time. You're a bit older than me, but our paths crossed. I said, let me ask you a question. I said, how many players in your career that you played with or against did you see suffer a heart problem on a football pitch or on a training ground in your time in your professional career? And he took a second and he went, well, there was Mark Vivian Foe and Fabrice Mwamba. And I went, I'll stop you there, Bob. I said, those two were both after you retired for a start. I said, so I'll ask you again. How many? Name me. Couldn't name you one. And I went, please don't tell me that this is normal. I said, because I've got common sense. I watch a lot of football. I watch a lot of other sports. My life has been devoted to sport. I watch a lot. I play a lot. I said, and I've noticed what's going on. I've also noticed, by the way, the amount of football matches that are being stopped because of heart problems in the crowds this season, which nobody talks about, and they're not allowed to kind of mention that it could possibly be to do with that. So, I made my position clear. I still think that the PFA need to investigate. If it's not the PFA, then the Premier League or the FA or UEFA, FIFA, somebody needs to investigate what's going on, because I'm not even saying that it is definitely the vaccine that's causing it, because it might be that if you've had COVID, and this might be an effect of having COVID in the long term, it might be that. But what I'm saying is, you need to know one way or the other. So let's have an investigation.
Asking the question should
and
be
let's
the
ask the question, and that shouldn't be a problem. Why is asking questions now deemed to be a right-wing conspiracy theory?
Yeah.
That's what I don't get.
What's their current stance on it? Are they investigating, or are they just completely dismissing it and not doing anything about it?
I haven't seen anything at the moment that tells me that they're looking into it, which just beggars belief, to be honest.
But I think it's just, as human beings, as all being different, all having different opinions.
That's exactly it.
Everybody coming from different angles. But if you can't ask the questions, if you can't have a debate, then
what sort of world we live in? We might as well go live in China if that's the way we want to go. And I don't particularly want to live under that regime. But the way things are going, might not be too long before we're there.
But like you said, whether you agree with what you say, what you're not, I think it can be quite admirable just to go against the grain and to stand up to say, this is what I believe in. And I think there should be questions asked, whether I personally believe in what you're saying, or whether I believe in what you say. I think if you're willing to stand up and go against the grain and what you believe, I think, like I said, it's admirable.
Should be respected.
Well, I mean, it is what it is. You kind of you believe what you want to believe, and I believe that there's something a bit more sinister going on than what we're being told, and I don't think asking questions about that is a particularly bad thing to do. And if by me asking questions makes other people go and have a look and think, oh, but what's he said about that? Maybe I'll look into that a little bit, because I don't expect, and I don't expect people to believe everything that I say. All I want them to do is to think for themselves, basically, and do their own research. I don't think that's asking too much.
Just to let you know, for 21 years I will call Honest John in the dressing room, so you can believe everything I say. 21 years Honest John. So you can fucking believe me.
Well, thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us in your house.
Pleasure, no problem at all. Good to see you, boys.